Welcome back. Now, Busia Senator Omtatah is fearing for his life after armed attackers raided his home in Busia. In the wee hours of Thursday morning, the attackers were looking for the senator, come activist, and injured at least one of Omtatah's relatives. Omtatah was not in the house at the time of the raid. That also left his sister-in-law nursing serious wounds as he had traveled to Nairobi earlier in the week. KTN's David Mudoka has more.
According to Busia Senator Omtatah, the heavily armed attackers violently stormed into his home in Busia at around 3 a.m. on Thursday. The attackers, who were reportedly searching for the senator, only found his brother, who he has been living with, and the wife of his brother. Unable to find Omtatah, who had traveled to Nairobi on Tuesday evening, the attackers assaulted Omtatah's sister-in-law and hurriedly left when an alarm was raised, leaving her with serious tissue injuries. Following the raid, a shaken Omtatah is now fearing for his life and believes that the attackers may not be strangers at his rural Busia home. Hours after the incident, fellow senators came out to condemn it. The senators further called for speedy investigations into the incident to establish who were at Omtatah's home in the wee hours of Thursday morning and why.
The necessary agencies, the ones that are investigative in nature, should conduct a thorough investigation into all these happenings to assure the nation, to assure the Senate, to assure members of the public and those people who voted for Senator Omtatah that his life is not in danger in any way and that it is not related to any of the work he does, either as an activist or a senior member of the Senate, so that we can be assured that he's going to be okay.
When Senate resumes from this short recess, we shall do adjournment motion and take a position as a House on why we should not be taken for granted. We want just to do our job. Is it too much to us?
Paul Otuoma has also condemned the raid at Omtatah's home and asked the national government to beef up security around the senator.
Kama kaunti zingine ziko na shida na masenators wao, mimi sina shida. Kwa sababu ndugu yangu Okia hapa alichaguliwa na watu, nilichaguliwa na watu, na kila mtu wako na kazi yake. And I know Okia's constituency goes beyond Busia. Hata tukizungumuza sahi sio Busia amepeleka kotini peke yake. See, there are so many other cases that he's handling and he has been handling.
The incident comes barely 2 weeks after Senator Omtatah was pelted with stones in his car while leaving the Busia law courts to file a petition against Governor Otuoma's administration by angry youth who are trailing his car. His life at risk, the senator drove into the nearby Busia Agricultural Training College to seek refuge from the administration police guarding the institution. Police officers later arrived at the scene and escorted him home. A month earlier, Omtatah survived a road accident after his car, a Probox model, was hit by a fuel tanker whose brakes had apparently failed as his driver attempted to swerve at Ojola on the way to Busia. Omtatah, who was in one of the passenger seats, escaped unhurt despite his car being thrown off-road by the tanker that eventually landed in a ditch. Omtatah has been a harsh critic of President William Ruto's government and has been embroiled in a number of legal tussles at the corridors of justice with the government since August 2022. The latest tussle is the fight over the newly passed affordable housing law that just a day after President William Ruto assented it into law last month, Omtatah took to court to challenge the affordable housing law. The matter is now before court. David Muthoka, KTN News.
Was a headlining story on the front page of the Star yesterday. Hooded thugs raid residents, beat up relative, demand senators' whereabouts. So who is after the life of Omtatah? Maybe that will be a probing question we could ask our panelists. And we've seen the spate of incidents that have been happening so far. The mishap on the roads, the pelting of stones, now the raiding. It seems there's a particular intent, for his life. Yeah.
Well,
I think there's let's hear from Kipruto Arap Kiro.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because any leader getting into trouble with so many sources of misfortunes, anything can be suspected. Remember the late JM before his body was discovered in Ngong Forest. The bus was to use to go to Mombasa. The bomb blast erupted, and many other incidences around that particular time. So we hope this is just a mere coincidence because we do not want to get to that particular level. And the other parallel that we can remember in the recent history is that of many people disappearing in Uganda and made-up accidents, including that one of the head of the Anglican Church, Janali Loum, who later on was found dead. So we really don't believe that that is how we should get. Because in a country where we are today, we are supposed to reason out, we are supposed to deal with this justice system should somebody exceed the limits of the law, but not get to the level of goonism, because that does not belong to the modern Kenya. But anything can happen, and we just wish him well, and we pray for him, because that is the most we can do. And of course, we tell him to be cautious about whatever he does and wherever he goes, and what time he goes to those particular places. But you know, once it begins, it is impossible to stop it. Because, you know, this amount of money that is really pervading the atmosphere is too much money that somebody can use to finish somebody's life. And that is something that we should not allow. On the other fundamental issue that we were mentioning earlier, we want to understand that this regime, when it came in, either the cases they were trying to acquit individuals involving lots of money were either initially politically motivated and therefore the acquittal was justified, or those individuals are the benefactors of this regime and therefore they are acquitted politically on the basis that whatever they are doing, they were taking it together. I'm saying that because earlier on Dr. Barak Muluka has said we should not look at these things as isolated. The question of fertilizer did not start this year. It started 2023, the investigation by John Allan Namu, 2022 in November. And remember, that is the time this regime was coming to town. And it seems it was systematic. How are we going to do it? Which system are we going to use? Who are we going to compromise in the chain so that the fertilizer gets to the farmers? Because now they say 800,000 has already gotten to the farmers. Of course, there is a genuine fertilizer that even I got in my farm this year from the same National Cereals and Produce Board, the subsidized one that came from Russia. But there is this now parallel system that has already supplied fertilizer. So that's why we are saying this is something that the regime cannot say they are not aware. They must tell us, why are they doing this to Kenyans? It is something that we need to tell them so that they improve their trust levels. I've said this society is trust deficit. This regime has lost the trust of many Kenyans. It's only that Kenyans seem to forget sooner than later, and 2 years down the road, they will say, after all, afadhali the thief that we know compared to the thieves that we are yet to know. That is my worry, because really, if I was the president, I would not run for a re-election. This is the lowest he can ever do. And I know he's capable of doing anything. And many people at times they think I'm bitter with him. I'm not bitter with him. He took over my ministry, came, cleaned the vehicles from all the 100 districts and released them as if they were new. And yet I purchased the previous year. The fertilizer that left in the stores, he said he has reduced from 1,800 to 1,400. And I left when they were 1,400. So I'm talking about an individual that I know very well. And he hyped that issue of fertilizer to look like Kirwa is the person responsible for expensive fertilizer. Now, let's say mine was expensive. His is fake. So this is something that really worries me about my president. And many Kenyans don't know, because if there are two Kenyans who are capable of cleaning themselves through propaganda, it's him and former Prime Minister. The two combined, this issue of AU and all this succession, the two combined, the propaganda machine dies completely. That's why what is happening, if Raila was still on the other side, this issue was going to be big news in Kenya, and somebody would have gone home. But I can assure you, Debal, nobody will go home. If Mithika can still have the courage to face the camera and say this fertilizer is not fake. You know, Debal, for those of us who I've been doing farming in small scale and large scale for the last 52 years. And even without even looking at the fertilizer, by touching the fertilizer, because many of us, we did not, when we were doing small scale, we did not have the machinery that we have today. So you touch the fertilizer and you know this is DAP, this is NPK, this is MAP. You can easily know, even the smell, you can easily know this is for top dressing or for planting. So for somebody to say, what method have you used, is an insult to the intelligence of Kenyans.
You know, I had the hopes that I would help Mheshimiwa to retire in AU. Now he has just blown the opportunity.
No,
I wanted him to go to AU now.
Well, I don't need to. I don't need to go to AU.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, for the 4 years I was out of the country, Debal, this is personal. Actually, I lost in terms of economic opportunities, because I was earning about 1 million shillings then. But when I came back after 4 years, many of my little farming activities were almost going down. So I don't need to get out of this country again, unless I'm going to meet the Mecca.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Martin Olo, on the attack of Omtatah, do you think this is just somebody is sounding a warning flare that you should slow your roll, go slow, go easy on the attacks on the government, especially using the courts, the activism that is always known for? Is this a warning flare?
You know, Debal, I live my life around the justice system. And I know when things are going wrong, and part of it is just what you're seeing. When you see whistleblowers, when you see rights activists being attacked, then you know the regime that you have is a rogue regime. It's a regime that doesn't want to account. Because if somebody is helping you to unravel or to uncover corruption or to fight justice, like just what the governor of Busia said, look, that he lives with the senator, he knows senator has a job, he has taken him to court, but he has no problem because he's not the first person he has taken to court. He does that as his way of ensuring he holds governments to account. So that is a governor who is sensible, who is realizing that there might be reason why these court cases are on, and therefore I would not, and I'm hoping that what he was saying is that he has no hand in whatever Omtatah was facing, because Omtatah has also taken him on. Of course, he has taken the national government on. Is he safe with the national government? Is he a darling of the national government? Certainly he's not. Is he a pain in their flesh? Yes, he is. He has taken and challenged them. But how I wish, for example, the president took Omtatah seriously. Remember when the president went to Busia, Omtatah said, I have been waiting for you to come so that I convince you that what you are about to go on is not correct, because I have papers here, I'm not going to take them to court. But if you don't act, I will go to court. And you know what happened. He went to court and actually he had his day in court. The point is that for sure, if we had people who were listening in authority, some things that they are doing would be arrested before. You see, we have a constitution, Debal, 2010 in this country. That constitution is very progressive. You have somebody in power who is on record as having opposed that constitution. In other words, there are things in that constitution that he never liked. And therefore, in power, he still exhibits the fact that he doesn't like some aspects of the constitution and wants to operate as if that constitution is not in place. That is where the problem is. So that if we had a president who is restrained, or a government that is restrained, a government that knows that Article 10, what Article 10 is about, knows what public accountability is about, Article 232 of the Constitution, knows about fair administrative justice and so on. If we had a government that is restrained, a lot of things that we're talking about would not be there. So Omtatahs of this world have reason to be careful, but also to continue being, gallant in terms of what they believe in, and that they'll also be protected, because the God we serve also is a God of justice. So he shouldn't be worried. Of course he should be careful, but there are enough people who associate with him. But more importantly, even if he was to go, we should know that you cannot kill truth. You cannot diminish that is true just because you don't like the purveyor of the truth. So let's go out for him and encourage him. He's a man I've known for a long time. I know his fighting spirit, and we must keep encouraging him. I mean, he's a rare voice in a country where people would rather be compromised. And that's why when Mheshimiwa here says that had Raila not been compromised by Ruto, maybe we would not be where we are, things would be a little better. But you see, Ruto is a smart guy. Having sat with Raila and said, let me sort this guy, he knows that the source of noise will go down and he can move on. Of course, we now have other people who are coming up, like the so-called young Turks and so on. I'm not sure that they have what it takes morally to give us an alternative voice. I'm not sure that given an opportunity, they will not fall back there. Of course, we have lessons also to draw even from Senegal and the choice of this young 44-year-old fellow. We need to see young people proving that we can trust them, that they can make a difference where old guards have not made a difference. You know, every time I say old guards, I want to look at my Mheshimiwa here, but then he tells me, no, he's not as old as I think. But all we are saying is that there are people who have been on the scene, have done it before. We need also to have time to learn what new things can come in. So the likes of Omtatah are bringing fresh approaches to this, but he also comes with a track record. He comes with a record for fighting for rights, and he must be protected. And we must say on this platform that he should continue soldiering. The state should take every step to ensure his safety. His fellow senators are taking what it takes, or are doing what it takes to sound out the alarm, and every Kenyan should sound out the alarm so that Omtatah's life be protected.
Indeed. Let's say from Barack Buluka, it's very interesting that this was happening April the 4th. And we know April the 4th also was the big day that we had a very consummate activist by the name of Martin Luther King, who was assassinated on that particular day. And then we have our own Omtatah as well, the people now attempting at his life, so to speak, but this is still under investigation. So is it a matter of speculation? But do you see any coincidence with that?
You know, when we say things like, be careful, I don't understand what one is supposed to do to be careful. I don't know whether it means keep quiet, or whether it means have around yourself a curtain of security fellows walking with you, or just go into hiding. Pio Gama Pinto was told to be careful in 1965. And Tom Mboya was told to be careful in 1969. J.M. Kariuki was told to be careful in 1975. And other people have been told to be careful. See, we are free people in a free country. And sometimes it's good to die for a cause, to die for something, than to stand for nothing. To be careful so that you are silent. Now, what we are seeing is typical of kakistocracies, regimes by the worst elements of society. It is typical of gangster governments that they will intimidate and silence the voices of justice, the voices of progressiveness. They must be intimidated. They must be subdued. But you cannot subdue these things. When James Kariuki was murdered in 1975, I was a young man in high school in this country, and I would hear the progressives saying that you can kill JM, but you cannot kill his spirit. And that spirit lives on. It's that spirit that has found residence in people like Okoiti, Omtatah. It is that spirit that encourages us to come even before national cameras on TV like this and call a kakistocracy by its name, and kakistocrats by the name that this is a kakistocracy. And it doesn't matter if I drop dead this morning because I've said this is a kakistocracy. Somebody else will pick up the baton and run on with it because this country is greater than these kakistocrats rolled into one. My brother Keprito Kirwa says that once it begins, it cannot be stopped. It can be stopped. It must be stopped. It will be stopped. It has been stopped before, and it will be stopped again.
Right, let's hear from Professor Kindiki.
Yeah, well, the issue of Senator Omtatah is we can only suspect, and Kenyans are very good at suspicion. But we hope that there is no malice. That's the hope. We hope that maybe it's a normal kind of attack. But you know, there are people
playing it back, joining the dots.
They are trying. We look at it retrogressively and look at people like him who have always been against the regimes. So, like his case is, this is not the first time to be against this regime. I remember very well, if I try to join the dots, even the previous regime, he had issues with the government and the cases in court and all that. But you see, whatever decision we take, the bar has got consequences, and there are people who have, I will call them, who are prisoners of conscience. They feel that this is what I must do in order to, you know, save a situation. And sometimes it's very difficult for them to change because that's why I'm calling them prisoners of conscience. And I think Omtatah is one of them, and we have many of them in the history of Kenya. People feel that they should fight for the rights of the minority or the majority, whichever the case. But they feel that there are people who are oppressed and they have to fight for them. And I think that's why he took the case of affordable housing to court, and maybe previously he had gone to court for other cases before. And I think we wish him well, and if there is malice or any bad intention of the attack, I think Omtatah has all the rights as a Kenyan citizen, just like any other person, to bring up his views of what he feels about the current regime and what he thinks about it. But I think there is no need of going too far of intimidating him to that level, because some of the issues he has raised, he has even taken them to court. So wait for the results and the outcome of the court judgment and what they are going to make decisions about. But having said that, if you look even in other countries, there are people who don't enjoy so much on what happens in any regime. And the other people who, under the scenes like we are debating this morning, the so-called cartels, so they are opposite of that. They maintain systems, and they are never against the systems or any regime, but they work underneath to support them and do many things undercover. Mm-hmm. So for him, he has taken the path of maybe trying to fight for the rights of the people he feels that they are being oppressed or they are underprivileged. And I think some of these decisions are they are not easy decisions. They are hard. And many people, you create so many enemies because of that. But the other people will not take such decisions, and they want their life to be cool. They don't want to be measured anywhere, and they play it safe. So for him, we only wish him well, and it's not fair to suspect what may be the worst would have happened, but let's hope that it was a normal attack like any other attack that could happen to anyone. But I think if it's maliciously done, I think that is it's not fair. But I think we wish him well, and let those in authority and those who are, given that privilege of discussing. We have seen senators saying that they are going to have a meeting and discuss about this issue. And maybe the police have also the case, and other, government agencies that they are following the case. I think he should be supported just like any other Kenyan, and not really to be victimized because of the position he has taken. Because I've seen there are people who are prisoners of conscience that no matter what happens, they cannot stop. That's what happened to people you mentioned, like Martin Luther King was assassinated because he created so many enemies. And maybe people somewhere did not want him. So for him, and he has taken that path to make things very clear. Whereas some of us, and many people in this country, and even outside this country, they will, even if they know something, they will never speak about it openly as he does. So I think he needs protection, needs, to be, people, the authorities to take care of him, regardless of him being against the regime, so that he can enjoy his right. Because actually, according to the Constitution of Kenya, he is not against the Constitution, because you can express, your feelings at any point, at any time. But he should not. We should not go to that extent of maybe so suspicious that he might die, he might do that. I think that that's not fair for him as a person and as a leader and a senator for his people.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you think also where we have Barack trying to put this incident, under this particular regime, is it a mischaracterization? In context. Is it a mischaracterization? Should we wait for the investigative agencies to try and investigate what is behind this particular incident? So when you talk about in context, can we hear from Martin, then we'll give you Barack, or you want to respond directly? So that we go sequentially.
Martin Shuk was detained for saying something about Kanu. And when he was asked to substantiate, he said, why substantiate the obvious? The point is that you will hear the same narrative about investigation of Omtatah as we are hearing the same narrative about fertilizer.
I'm just trying to follow through what Professor Kindiki is saying, that, let's wait until the investigation is done so that we uncouple what the incident, if is being perpetrated by the regime, or this is purely just, a robbery incident like any other Kenyan that maybe will suffer the same fate.
We should not trivialize these things. I have lived in this country for close to 70 years. Yeah? Close to 70 years I have lived in this country. And the catalogue is there. It is clear how many times we have been told that no stone shall be left unturned. And we have clear knowledge of how so many stones still remain unturned. When we say let him be protected, since when did hyenas begin protecting goats? We've got a huge problem here of a contradictory nature. And we have got to face the facts and call them by their names, what they are. This is a country where the head of state has told us at a public gathering that I have been given the sword of the commander-in-chief, and I'm not going to use it to cut vegetables. I'm going to use it to railroad these people who are opposed to the housing levy. You have it somewhere in your archives. Yes. If you go there, you will find it on tape. Yeah? And he's talking about the housing levy and talking about the people he's calling quislings because they are going to court, they are slowing down the process, and they're going to be dealt with. I have got to interpret those things in that context unless the owner of those words retracts them or he sends his apologists to come and explain to us what they mean. And the people who went to Omtatah's residence were asking for him. And they beat up people and injured them, assaulted them. As a warning shot to him and to others who may be inclined to behave and to speak and to articulate issues the same way. But people should not be intimidated. Waswahili wanasema kwamba ukombozi si lelema, ni kujitolea mhanga kwa mstari wa mbele wa vita. Na kwa hivyo ni lazima watu kama Okoiti Omtatah na wengineo. If you want to be apathetic and stay in safe spaces, that is fine because apathy is also part of the game. But we must have the Rosa Parks, we must have the Luther Kings, we must have the Okoiti Omtatahs, we must have the Pure Gamma Pintos who stand out. And we're not encouraging martyrdom, but if it has got to be martyrdom, so be it. People must come out and be gallant. You want to stay in a safe space so that you can do what there when you are living like a cornered rat.
All right. I think we've just given it also a good wrap. Meanwhile, the ruling party UDA has defended its move to appoint KRA chairperson Anthony Mwaura and Kenya Power Board chair Joy Mdivo to various party electoral organs. This follows claims by the ODM party that the move was against the law and their demands that the two must resign from their current offices. Speaking in Naivasha, officials from parties under the Kenya Kwanza coalition led by UDA Secretary General insisted that no law was breached. Ken Gachui has more.
The appointment of Anthony Mwaura and Joy Mdivo to head UDA's National Elections Board and Internal Dispute Resolution Committee respectively was met with criticism, with ODM terming it illegal. Mwaura is currently the chairperson of the Kenya Revenue Authority, while Mdivo is the chairperson at the Kenya Power Board.
We are fully aware of the definitive provisions of the law on what and who constitutes a public officer. We are guided by judicial precedents and determinations that have found and held that chairpersons of state corporations are not public officers.
Speaking on Wednesday, ODM Party Secretary General Edwin Sifuna described the appointment as illegal and demanded their immediate resignation from the government agencies.
We demand that all those people who have been named as UDA officials must immediately resign from public service. There is no way they will serve two masters, the public and the UDA party.
Malala, who spoke in Naivasha accompanied by officials from the Kenya Kwanza coalition partners, further took a swipe at ODM over its claims that the government was deliberately delaying the release of funds meant for political parties. Part of the funds were to be used for political party polls.
The Office of Registrar of Political Parties received the second installment of the monies meant to be shared by political parties. And as a party, we want to confirm that we have received our share. So the issue of ODM saying that they have not received their share is an issue of accountability. Let them be accountable. Because I have never seen ODM party conducting any activity in the grassroots. I have never seen any staff member of ODM. We only have Sifuna at the secretariat.
Officials from the Kenya Kwanza party is drumming support for the current regime in its efforts to revive the economy.
Uchumi unaendelea kukua, hali ya nchi inaendelea kuwa nzuri, na ni matumaini yetu ya kwamba tutaendelea kufanya vyema siku zijazo ili mwananchi wa kawaida aweze kuwa na maisha bora.
We support our president, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, on his agendas for this country. And therefore, as a coalition, we want to speak with one voice to fulfill these agendas.
Ken Gashuhi, KTN News.
Right, interesting editorial cartoon there by Ozone as well, that you can see the roots. They're actually getting now into the polls there. This is all about the grassroots elections, and this is where the debate is emanating. Is it a conflict of interest, so to speak? What does the Constitution say regarding this? Or maybe acts that we have over public officers, especially when it comes to Kerry and Kenya Power. Also, these are big parastatals in this country. Maybe we can begin with Martin Olo, just from the law perspective. Where is there any breach of law? Because this is where we can see the matter being contentious.
Dubal, at the Article 260 of the Constitution.
260.
260.
Where
you see the definitions, yeah? Definitions of the definitions are there. Let's head there so that we are able to speak together on this one. Huh?
Yes.
260, are you there?
260, yes. In the Constitution, unless the context requires otherwise, that's what it says. It begins that way. Adult means an individual who has attained the age of 18. Is that the way you want us to
Yeah, because what I'm going to
I continue reading?
Okay, it's more than that. But what I want you to go to is to see what a state officer means in the Constitution. Yes. So look for a state officer, state office. I was reading, It's Article 260, so it goes on, but when you go down, it's definitions, so it's alphabetical. So after R, you should see S.
Yes, it's there.
Yeah,
for ease of movement, let's just say go to page 285 of this, and it is 260 something there, where they say state office means any of the following offices. A, president. B, deputy president, cabinet secretary, member of parliament, judges, magistrates, member of a commission, to which chapter 15 applies. Member of a county assembly, AG, director of pub.
I want to reduce our time on it.
Yes.
Just before that, there is a definition of a public officer. Yeah? And what it means a state officer or any state officer, that is now what is described down there. But the B part of it says any person other than a state officer who holds a public office. And it explains what a public office is. It means an office in the national government, a county government, or the public service if the remuneration and benefits of the office are payable directly from the consolidated fund or directly out of monies provided for by Parliament. So a person who holds a chairperson's role in a parastatal, a person who holds a role as a member of the board in a parastatal. Parastatals get allocations from Parliament. Not some from consolidated, some from Parliament. By definition, fall in the category of public officers. So what my good friend Cleophas Malala is reading is very different. He's reading of a state officer. But we are talking about a public officer. And a public officer who may be either a state officer or somebody who holds an office where the monies that are paid to them is from the consolidated fund or allocated by Parliament, is not supposed to hold a public office, a political office. So if you are the chairman of KRA, yes, you can be a member of a political party, but you cannot be an official of the political party. You cannot be appointed to carry out official functions of a political party. If you do, you resign. Now, what you are seeing is the continued, and I've said this before, you know, in President Ruto, KANU is alive. What he saw Moi doing is what he thinks is the right way to rule this country, and that's what he attempts to do. For Moi, KANU was government and government was KANU, and that was okay during those days. The Constitution allowed it. For this post-2010 constitution, it is different. You cannot be a member of a board and run for an elective office. You would have to resign. And of course, you run for a political office. After you fail, you can now be appointed in a public office, but you cannot be holding a political party office at the same time. So it's obvious, and that's why Malala, for example, as Secretary General, cannot even be named a cabinet secretary. So he's in the cabinet, but without portfolio. Because the moment he's named a cabinet secretary, he is supposed to relinquish his position. The prime cabinet secretary, the moment he was named prime cabinet secretary, he had to relinquish the ANC office. So that is what we are saying. Now, I have a problem with even some of my good friends who are lawyers, like my sister who is in Kenya Power. If this is not a simple legal thing that you should understand, then I don't know what law we want to practice. Because you cannot be in public service and at the same time in political party management and political and resolution and so on. The moment you do that, you should then step out of public office. Because remember, some of the people you are responsible for in that other parastatal that you are in are not necessarily your UDA party members. So how will you and how will they perceive you in terms of conflict of interest, in terms of fairness? So yeah, this is a direct affront to the law, a direct contradiction to the Constitution, but grant it to them. They'll wax lyrical and tell you how they are judicious. Look at what the Secretary General is saying of UDA. They have received their share. But they're saying ODM has to be accountable. So he's actually saying that the reason why ODM has not received their share is that they are not accountable. So in other words, he's saying because they have received their share, they have themselves published their records and we now know how much they have. So this is contradictory language in the same breath. If parties have to account so that they can be given returns, he should be saying, we have accounted for our money, look at these UDA records, here is the returns, and we have not seen any from ODM, and that's why we think they may not have received the reimbursement, if at all that's the connection. But it's politics 101.
Right, let's get to hear from Kiprito Rapkirwa. You were in that particular party before. The intrigues you can tell us what is really going on, especially if we have Joy Mdivo there. She's a consummate lawyer as well. She'll be all the wise as far as the legal requirements are stipulated in the Constitution, as we've just been explained to by Martin Olo. We had also, I think, Dr. Musumba. So she has been appointed, I think, to lead that particular team from Kenya Kwanza on the IEBC issue, because also the other side was eagerly waiting to see that particular team. Maybe they were left with no choice of a legal mind but Joy Mdivo. But you can tell us, what are the insiders there? What are the intrigues? Who else could have actually been given this particular? But for them to come and say there's no breach of law, I think that is an affront to the law as it's being put by Martin Law.
Well, I think, as they say, one day in politics is a long period. And there are many days I left UDA. So a lot of things have happened. I don't know what's happening anymore. We used to meet the deputy president then almost every Tuesday, even with Barack Muluka here. We brief him.
But I was not a member.
No. You said you would go as apologies. That's okay.
But I've never been a member of the party.
He was not a member of the party, but he was part of the political bureau.
You consultant.
You were deemed.
I was a consultant for
this, in whatever nature, you are still, that is still deeming.
And I have apologized. I've apologized to Kenyans.
To have his say.
It's a very interesting. I was a member of the deputy chair of the party. And we worked very well. For 2 years, we worked very well with the deputy president at that time. Until, of course, the press became toxic. But that's not really the focus of my discussion this morning. The focus of my discussion...
The press became toxic?
The place.
Oh, the place. Okay,
it became toxic. So I had to run away. So, but the most important thing is there are many other glaring irregularities in UDA today. Even some of the governors, some of the members of parliament, who also happen to be officials of the party, That is against the very section of the Constitution that has been read ably by Dr. Martin Olo. You would expect good manners so that we're also able to build vibrant party systems. But if you are a governor, you are a vice chair, or you are the chair of the party at the same time, then you're really going against the law. And you are also not allowing the party to grow. And that is a very pervasive disease that has bedeviled Africa, except in one or two places. I have the risk of repeating all the time Tanzania, because Tanzania, the party is strong. And the party is a separate entity from the government of the day. And the party can summon even ministers to go and account for certain excesses of behavior. But you see here, everything now is meshed. You don't know who is an official, who is not an official. And that is what is marking a lot of arrogance that is really exuding or oozing out of the UDA regime or Kenya Kwanza regime. Because look at the way the ministers are behaving, the way even our good spokesperson is behaving, telling us about soil conditioner. I don't know which science he did to talk of soil conditioner, which is supposed to be just waste from donkeys and stones. I don't know what kind of soil are they conditioning. So it's a problem. And perhaps we just need to remind the president that is the father figure of this nation. The president has basically three roles. He is the father of the nation, he is the head of government, and he is the commander-in-chief of all the forces of Kenya. So as the father of the nation, he needs to put this out in order so that people can respect that, yes, you may be holding certain position, but you are still accountable to the public. Because this public space that each one of us is occupying, you need to account for it. Even those of us who don't have positions in government, we should not say things for the sake of it. We must account for what we say. That's why we are very careful. The things we say here, we can repeat elsewhere, and we can say it even off camera, because we strongly believe we owe it to the nation of Kenya to speak the truth and to advise those who are in power today, because others will come tomorrow.
All right, let's hear from Barack Muluka.
You see, first of all, I consulted for them. Mm-hmm. I was not a member.
He was in the political
I was not a member of...
The issue was not whether you were a member, it was that you were there in those meetings.
When you look at the optics, when you see all those officials who are flanking the secretary or making those statements, we don't know whether they are consultants.
Allow me to be heard.
Also, the mistakes they're making could be the advice.
It could be that.
Was in that room.
It could be the document that was submitted by Barack on the consultancy.
And he used to submit a lot of good work.
Strategy. And the communication.
This first and evident information. He was with us in the morning.
I'm a keeper of German shepherds and Rottweilers. And these people are converging on me the way I've seen my German shepherds and Rottweilers converge on their prey.
We are all guilty of supporting UDA at one time with that.
You see, my assignment was to help Ruto to become president, and which I think I did with the relevant speed, spice, and credence. Yeah, but I didn't help him to become president so that he can do the things that he's doing. Yeah, the two must be separated. Okay? I was like that signboard there which shows you how to get to town. It does not get to town with you. It remains there, and it will show another person how to get to town when they come. Now, when you look at young Cleophas Wahungu Malala, you see dogmatism in its infancy. I don't know whether we should call it puppyism or something, now that we are using the imagery of dogs. Yeah? You are seeing dogmatism in its infancy. You are seeing infantile impertinence. That here is a fellow who opens his mouth and those words roll out of it almost as if it's of their own volition. George Orwell would call it dark speak, that it just comes from somewhere near the throat. The head is not properly engaged, and hence the kinds of things that we are hearing. See, the question we should be asking is this. Does UDA have a shortage of people? Now that Mheshimiwa Kirwa ran away from there, does it have a shortage of people that it could use in those roles that lawyer Joy Mdivo, who is chair of Kengen, must play, or Mwaura of KRA must play? Does it have a shortage of people? If it does not have a shortage of people, because they also boast of having very massive numbers, why is it that it is individuals who are chairing these particular state institutions who must be called to these tasks? I don't have the answers, and I'm advised by Mheshimiwa Kipruto Kirwa that I should be careful of what I say, so I'm being careful. And Professor Kindiki has also said I should be careful, I should not just speculate. So I will not speculate beyond that, but I will float the two questions and leave it there for Kenyans to reflect on. Carefully. Is there a shortage of people within that fraternity who could play that role? And why these two entities? What is outstanding about KRA that the chair of KRA could do for UDA that nobody else could do? And what is it about Kengen? And Kenya Power. And I leave it within that docket there for us to reflect on.
All right, let's hear from, I hear my music is up. Can we just pick your brains from the other side of a break, Professor Kindiki? Yes, time is up for a short break. We take a short break right now. When we circle back, of course, we continue pace with the conversation on this latest development and where it will head. Will they now retract and pick new faces to manage those functions of UDA in regard to the upcoming grassroots elections? So we take a short break. You're watching Uongozi Today here, where we keep them honest.